Number 5. This happened several years ago. I'm a short, petite woman, and at the time I was in my mid-20s. I live alone with my dog Blake in a small neighborhood of townhomes. My job required me to work out of the office in different areas of the community hosting events and such, so it was pretty common for me to be able to stop by my house midday to let my dog out. For context, Blake was a Vizsla, but was tall and large for his breed, and all muscle. Blake was trained but not very well behaved when people came to knock at the door. He also had a very intimidating bark. One day, I came home in the afternoon to let Blake out and grab a bite to eat. By the lack of cars, it looks like I might be the only person home in the neighborhood, with the exception of a guy in his mid-40s spraying for termites. I notice him watch me as I walk in and get a weird vibe from him. Not 5 minutes later, I get a knock at the front door. I hesitated, but I decided to answer, and it was the termite guy. I normally held my dog back and made him chill, but this time I let Blake jump and bark all over the screen glass door. The termite guy was obviously surprised and looked at Blake for an uncomfortably long time before speaking. He asked if I had a screwdriver that he could borrow. This seemed odd to me because 1, why would he need one if he's just spraying the outside of homes? And 2, why wouldn't he have had one in his work truck if this was something that he needed for his job? I should have just said no and shut the door, but I told him that if he walked away, I would set one on the front porch. Otherwise, if I opened the door, my dog would attack. He walked off, and thinking that I shouldn't be rude, I tossed the screwdriver outside. He never came back to use it. I still wonder to this day what might have happened if I hadn't had Blake to use as an intimidation factor. Number 4. So my husband Ted is in the military. We've generally lived on every base station that we've been to because the surrounding towns can be very crime-ridden and sketchy, and with my husband gone most of the time, the extra security is appreciated. I worked from home due to us moving so often, so one afternoon I was taking a break. I'd made a bite to eat and was snuggling up on the couch with my dog, but that's when I heard the sliding glass door open. It was so nonchalant that I thought it was Ted. I saw my cat run from the kitchen and a shadow standing near the door entering it. I thought maybe he'd come back for something, so I called out to him and asked, "What are you doing home? Did you forget something?" But I received no answer. This is when I just got an eerie feeling. After I asked what he was doing, I saw the shadow move and heard the click of the sliding door lock. From there, he walked to the laundry room and shut the door. I had still received no response. So I'm sitting on the couch scared out of my mind, and I call my husband hoping to hear his phone in the laundry room, but I don't hear a ring when he answers. I ask him why he came home and didn't answer me, and all he says was, "That wasn't me. Grab the dog and get in your car." After getting off the phone with Ted, I grabbed the dog and ran to my car. From there, I called the military police. Waiting on them to arrive was probably the longest 20 minutes of my life. When they got there, they cleared the house and found no one. They asked me to make a statement, and even they were baffled that someone would try this on a military base. We still live here, and I'm terrified that he may come back. Number 3. This story comes from my father, who was born near Toronto and grew up on a farm with a younger brother and older sister. So this happened in 1969 when my father was about 8 or 9. One night, both of my parents were out of the house along with his brother. They left him and his sister at home alone. Eventually, the phone rang and my father picked up the phone with his standard Canadian politeness and said, "Hello, this is Bob." The person calling said that they were coming to off my father and his sister and told them to leave the house. My father, slightly spooked, used the intercom system to page his sister, telling her what had happened. At that time, both kids could drive, as they'd been doing so on the farm, so leaving the house wasn't too much of a problem. While packing some things to leave, the phone rings again and my father answers it. "Hello, this is Bob." The voice says, "Why haven't you left yet? I'm coming to off you." To which my father replies in a stereotypical Canadian accent, "Well, I'm trying to leave, but you keep on calling. I can't leave when I have to keep answering the phone, now can I?" The voice hangs up and my father and sister drive to where their parents were having dinner. Nothing else happened with the voice, and it didn't really seem to faze my dad. Only a Canadian would be polite enough to inform their victim that they're coming for them. Number 2. I was 10 years old when this happened to me. I lived in a very nice neighborhood called River Plantation. We had a golf course, clubhouse, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool where me and the other kids spent most of our summers. We all had our own phone book for our community that listed the names of our parents and the children living in the household. One summer day, me and my sister were swimming at the pool when I decided I needed a break from the heat. So she drove us back to my house. As soon as I walked through the door, I heard the phone ringing. I answer it and it's a man claiming to be my doctor. He says that I have an appointment with him that day. He asked me some strange questions, but of course I answer not knowing any better. He asked if I'm developing yet, and I say no. He asked if I've been home all day, and I explained that I've been swimming at the clubhouse. He then asked if I'm wearing a swimsuit, to which I said yes. But here's the creepy part. He then asked me if I'm wet, and I remember pausing for a second and thinking that that was a very dumb question, but I told him yes. The man then got quiet for a second, and then told me that he was supposed to be picking me up for my appointment, but that if I wanted to have more time to swim, that he could come pick me up at the pool at 3 p.m. in a blue car. So I agreed to be waiting for him at 3 p.m. I remember being kind of irritated that he was cutting into my swim time, but didn't think much else of it. After I hung up the phone, I told my sister about the call, and she looked horrified. I knew something wasn't right at that point. So we go back to the pool, but we don't go inside. Within 10 minutes, 2 unmarked cars pull up, and I found out that they were police officers. My sister then spoke with them briefly, and then we went inside to the clubhouse. At about 3:30, one of the officers came inside and pulled my sister away from the table to tell her of the arrest. To this day, I don't know if the guy was actually charged with anything or not, but I certainly hope that he was. Number 1. This happened in Tokyo in a subway station. I was standing with my father when I saw a demon. A monstrously tall and furry creature with leathery black wings and a snout like an anteater. I must have stared at him for 10 minutes before he finally spoke in a soft mutter that was clearly intended for his ears only. "This human is creeping me out," he said. "It looks almost as if he's looking right at me." "I am looking right at you," I said. The demon nearly jumped out of his skin. "You can see me?" he asked. "Yes, can't everybody?" "No, not unless they're in the 5th dimension." "Am I in the 5th dimension?" I asked. "Your mind must have slipped over here by mistake. What were you thinking about just before you saw me?" I thought for a moment and then grinned. "Trains." "Oh, well, trains are the link between our dimensions. I guess your mind must have just wandered over here. Either that or you're going crazy." "I hope I'm not going crazy," I said. "Being crazy is a good thing in the 5th dimension," the demon replied. I laughed. "Do you have subway lines in the 5th dimension?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "How else would we get to work?" "You've got wings," I said. "Yes, but who wants to fly? Taking the train is so much easier, and if I fly to work, I'm all sweaty when I get there." "So what do you use your wings for?" I asked. "I put them over my head when it rains." "Can I see?" I asked. "Sure," the demon said. My hair blew back as he swooped his enormous wings over his head. I laughed again. "You're funny," I said. The demon laughed too, but then his expression changed. "Are you okay?" I asked. "You seem sad." Yes, the demon replied, not looking at me, but looking at something behind me. "Say, would you like to see a magic trick?" "Okay." The demon reached up and tugged a big rainbow handkerchief out of his snout. He must have pulled it about 20 feet before he finally ran out. "That's funny," I laughed, but I stopped when I realized that I wasn't holding my dad's hand anymore. I looked around and saw that the subway station had disappeared, replaced by flowing green meadows that were full of old trains. "I can't see the station anymore," I said. "That's okay," said the demon. "Sometimes it's better to see what isn't there instead of what is." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, sometimes when I'm bored or sad, my mind slips off into the 3rd dimension and I see people like you." "That's funny," I laughed. "Can you go to other dimensions too?" But the demon didn't answer. He was looking up at the sky. "It's starting to rain," he said, whooshing his wings up over his head. Warm droplets of rain hit my face. "Can I get under your wings with you?" I asked. "Not now," he replied. "You've got to go home." The world began to shimmer and flow together like different shades of green and golden paint, spinning around faster and faster in circles. I started to feel a little sick and I closed my eyes. The world stopped spinning, but warm droplets of water still fell on my face. I opened my eyes and saw my mom crying over me, but I still didn't see my dad. "Where's Dad?" I asked her. "Did he bring me home?" "Yes, darling," she said, although she didn't look at me when she said it. "He brought you home and then he had to go away." "Oh," I replied. "When will he be back?" "I don't know," she said. My dad never did come back, and it was years before I found out the truth. He'd taken his own life that day. That morning, he'd written a note to my mother explaining that he intended to bring me along and step in front of the train with me. My mother found it when she got home from work and called the police, but it was too late to stop my father. The witnesses say that just before he jumped, I pulled away from his hand and ran off, fainting right afterward. But one of the witnesses, who was a small boy around my age, said that he saw something take my hand and lead me away from the speeding train just before impact. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry that this last story was so heavy, but it was too good to not include. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.